All right, so let's talk cloud security. Right now, security teams are absolutely drowning in alerts. It's a huge problem. But today, we're going to dig into a really new approach that just might be the answer to cutting through all that noise.
So picture this, your home security alarm. It goes off every single time a leaf blows past the window or a cat walks by. How long would it take before you just start ignoring it? A day? Maybe 2. Well, that's exactly the situation cybersecurity pros are in every single day.
So let's really dive into the heart of the matter here. The big problem has a name, and it's something folks in the security world call alert fatigue.
You see, our modern security tools, these things called intrusion detection systems or IDS, they're designed to be incredibly sensitive, which sounds good, right? But that sensitivity creates this massive, very human problem. It's just a constant, overwhelming flood of alerts. And when everything is an emergency, well, nothing is. It becomes almost impossible to see the real threats hiding in all that noise.
And, this quote from the research paper really just hits the nail on the head. Think about it. Even if a system is, say, 99% accurate, if it's looking at billions of events a day, that 1% of errors creates this deafening roar of false alarms. It completely drowns out the signals you actually need to hear.
Okay, so this isn't some brand new problem, right? People have been trying to solve this for a while. Let's take a look at the 2 main traditional approaches, the old guard, if you will, and see why they've kind of fallen short.
So on one side, you've got what are called static methods. You can think of this as a really simple, rigid rulebook. Like, if this alert happens, it gets a score of 5, period. It's fast, sure, but it's also kind of dumb. It has 0 context about your specific system. Then on the other side, you have the dynamic methods. Now, these are a bit more clever. They use these things called attack graphs to try and predict every possible path an attacker could take. It's almost like they're trying to write a choose-your-own-adventure story for hackers. But what's the big problem here? It's all just a guess. It's totally hypothetical.
And that brings us to the fatal flaw that they both share. They are completely obsessed with predicting what an attacker might do. They're not focused on what is actually happening to your system in real time.
So if the old ways are kind of broken, what's the alternative? Well, this is where a much smarter approach comes in. It's a framework called Cyclius.
And this is where things get really interesting because it's all about a fundamental shift in mindset. Look at these 2 columns here. The old way, that's attack-centric. It's always asking, how could an attacker get in? But the new way, the defense-centric way, asks a completely different question. It asks, okay, an alert just went off. Did anything important actually get hurt? See the difference? This is a total game changer because it's focused on real consequences, not just hypotheticals.
So, to put a fine point on it, Cyclius is what you'd call a consequence-centric framework. Its whole job is to look at any given alert and immediately figure out the real-world impact, the damage to the systems you care about the most.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does it actually do that? Well, it's a surprisingly elegant 2-part solution.
All right, part 1 is the human part. An administrator creates something called a consequence tree. And no, this isn't some crazy technical diagram. It's really just a simple, high-level list of what we call the crown jewels. The handful of things that are absolutely critical to protect. Think customer databases, key web servers, that kind of stuff. Then you have part 2, and this is the automated magic. Cyclius basically just watches your system while it's running normally, and it automatically builds what's called a dependency graph. Now, this is the super detailed map of how every little file and process is connected to everything else. It learns things like, hey, this web process always reads from that config file, which is owned by that user. It's the kind of nitty-gritty detail that, honestly, no human could ever keep track of manually.
In this image here, it just illustrates the whole idea perfectly. You have the administrator providing the high level what's important with that consequence tree, and then the machine, Cyclius, figures out the incredibly complex, low-level how it's all connected with the dependency graph. It's this beautiful division of labor between human intuition and machine power.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, take a look at this. This is a real dependency graph. It's just a crazy, dizzying web of connections. Can you imagine asking a person to map all this out by hand? Or to understand the security risk of every single one of those lines? It's just not possible. But the thing is, Cyclius learns all of this automatically, and this is where the magic really happens. When an alert pops up, let's say for some little random process over here, Cyclius doesn't see an isolated event. It uses that massive graph to instantly calculate the probability that this one little blip could ripple through the system and actually impact one of your crown jewels, even if that jewel is 5 or 6 steps away.
So, okay, that's the theory. But what does this actually mean in the real world? Why is this such a game changer?
Well, for one, it's actually surprisingly easy to get going. Step 1, the admin defines those high-level priorities. That's the consequence tree. Step 2, you just let Seclius run in a training mode for a few hours while it learns how your system works. And step 3, you just go live. It immediately starts crunching alerts and spitting out that real-time security score.
And the benefits here are just huge. It means your security experts can finally focus on high-level strategy instead of getting bogged down in the weeds. It assesses actual damage, not imaginary attacks. And this is so important, it doesn't need to be a fortune teller. It doesn't have to predict what an attacker will do next. If an alert fires for something that has literally no connection to your critical assets, Seclius knows it's just noise. It can safely be ignored.
And what you get at the end of the day is just beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of that flood of confusing alerts, the security team gets one single continuous score, a number from 0, meaning you're totally secure, to 1, meaning you're compromised. At a glance, they know the exact security status of the things they care about most. They know exactly when they need to jump into action.
Which really leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, right? For decades, cybersecurity has all been about building higher and higher walls. But maybe the future of security isn't about trying to build an impenetrable fortress. Maybe it's more about having this perfect, real-time understanding of what's happening inside those walls, so we can focus our energy only on the threats that truly, truly matter.